What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Mad Records podcast. My name is Michael Gilbride. I'm the founder of Mad Records, which is an online collective for independent artists. And today I'm talking with one of my favorite people in Nashville, Tennessee, Joe Pisapia. Joe is a multi-instrumentalist. He's an artist. He's a producer. He was in the band Guster in the early 2000s. He's produced for acts including Ben Folds and Katie Lang. And he currently has one of the coolest studios out here in Nashville, Middle Tree Studios, where he produces for independent acts of all various ranges and sizes. But he's truly one of my favorite people, one of the wisest people that I know, and I'm excited for you guys to hear our conversation. Joe's going to walk you through kind of his journey through the music industry, his view on production and artistry. Also, just a heads up, our podcast is now available on all streaming platforms, so you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. So if you can't watch the video version here on Substack, go check us out on your favorite streaming platform. But without further ado, let's get to the interview. Joe, what's up, man? Welcome.
Michael, it's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the Mad Records podcast. I wanted to start by this is something you may or may not be surprised by, but I feel like when everybody moves to Nashville, they have like a welcome to Nashville moment.
Yeah.
And mine was at your studio, Middle Tree Studio, right?
Yeah.
And I walked in the back, because to people who don't know you, you walk into the backyard of your house and there's just this amazing studio there. And I walked in and I was like, this is like freaking Disneyland. Like, it was the most mind-blowing thing to me that this beautiful studio was just in someone's backyard. And that was the moment that I was like, oh man, this is like a cool place. So I don't know if you know that or if you get that a lot, but that was like my welcome to Nashville kind of moment. So I want to kind of start at the beginning and then we'll kind of go from there. But like, everybody always talks about you were in Guster, you were a touring member, you produced for Guster, you produced for Ben Folds, all of these accolades. But I want to hear about the come up period prior to that, because a lot of our audience is in that period right now. So what was going on with Joe Pisapia pre-Guster that got you on the scene?
Well, my brother and I moved here in 94. And every highway was 2 lanes except for right at the airport. They made it into 3 so you could have an exit ramp. there was no Spring Hill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was all 2 lanes down there. You know what I mean? It wasn't like even driving to Franklin or driving to Brentwood was like driving in the country. It was like going through horse farms and stuff on like the back roads. So it was a totally different vibe. It was super mellow, but we had done a record with my college buddy in Pennsylvania. We were living in New Jersey. We had done a record in Pennsylvania. And
where in Pennsylvania?
In Lancaster.
Oh, right. Because I'm from Scranton.
Exactly. And
right.
So, because I went to college out there, my best buddy, Steve Ward, he was always like ahead of me in like the recording game. And so he taught me a lot about recording. We grew together. He taught me how to use the 4-track, then the 8-track, then the ADATs and all that stuff. So we did a record. Back then, it was like 3 ADATs stacked going, in tandem, which was like, the younger people don't know, it was VHS tapes, which, again, VHS tapes feels old-fashioned, but it was so newfangled that you could put them into... each VHS would run 8 tracks of audio, and so you'd stack 3 units and have 24 tracks, and you'd have to wait for them to rewind, just like a tape machine, Anyway, we did a record. We sent it around. One of our buddies from Pennsylvania said, hey, send this record to a guy named Rick Clark. And we knew who Rick Clark was because we were big fans of the band Big Star from Memphis. Mm-hmm. And Rick Clark had written the liner notes for Big Star's 3rd record. So we were kind of already like, oh, we're going to send it to somebody who's famous in the Big Star lore world. And he loved our record. He wanted to meet us. And we were like, let's check out Nashville. You know what I mean? And
this already sounds so much more glamorous than how it is nowadays, where it's like, I'm gonna send your album to Rick Starr.
Totally.
He's like nowadays it's like you're submitting to playlisting and Submit Hub to have someone kind of shit on your music, and this sounds a lot more glamorous.
It wasn't right, because it was a lot more. It was sometimes I marvel at like how shit got done, because it's like, okay, I remember talking to him on my landline, and we talked so long till the landline got hot. You know what I mean? Like your ear would get hot because you'd be like, and he was a talker, but he would be like very like, here, and he's real Southern, like, this is what's like in the music business, guys, and this is what it's, this is what Big Star went through, and we were just like, tell us more, and so anyway, we came down here to check it out, and we drove down together, my brother and I, and we saw this guy play. His name is Brad Jones, and Brad Jones is a great producer in town, and he it turns out he never plays, but he played that weekend, and his show was mind-blowing, and we were like, if this is what goes on in the scene in Nashville, we're coming, you know what I mean? Because it was kind of like this power pop, Anglophile, Britpop kind of, it was so cool what he was doing, and all the players in his band were amazing, and so we were like, we're moving to Nashville. That's it. And so that's what we did. We moved down here, and we tried to build a following with our band, and we waited tables at a restaurant that's no longer there. In fact, some people might remember Nashville. Nashville used to be The Mill, which was a small chain from Huntsville, Alabama, before it was Nashville. Blah, blah, blah. But my brother and I would do guerrilla marketing. We'd have Hat Show print to our posters, and we'd shrink them down in Kinko's and make little cards out of them. And every time we gave somebody a check at the restaurant, we'd slip that in there.
I love it.
You can't do that stuff anymore. The restaurant would be like, don't do that. But they were like, promote yourself, boys.
Yeah. No, I love that. And what happened? Where'd Rick Starr? What was it, Rick Starr?
Oh, Rick Clark.
Rick Clark.
Rick Clark still, like, he became big in the film supervising world.
Oh, okay.
Like, he does a bunch of TV shows like Hell on Wheels, and he does another one. And a lot of stuff that it's really like a lot more roots music, you know, like almost Ry Cooder-ish stuff that, he's putting in those, So
you come out to Nashville, you said in 94, and then you didn't join Guster until what, 2001?
So
or
yeah,
something like that, right? So what was that gap
that span
like?
Was basically like my brother and me. When I'm meeting a lot of the young artists from Mad Records, it totally reminds me of the angst that we felt, and where it's like, what is happening? How come nothing's happening?
Yeah.
And I would look back. It was like 20 years ago. I look back through my journals. I'm like, wait, that happened that fast? Like, it felt like forever. Because, everything, when you're younger, everything feels, time is so much slower. And believe me, I'm not saying that it isn't real, because it is real. The struggle is real. But, a lot of nothing. A lot of like, we had done a record, and we kind of shopped it around and this and that. And then people, of course, these other producers, like, or production teams, we hear the record, we want to re-record it. It's like, well, we're happy with it, and we just want to put it out, and we just want help putting it out, and blah blah blah. So, it was in 96, 97. We recorded with Brad Jones, the guy who we met, who played, and he's a producer, and he had produced stuff we liked, and so we did a record with him, and it's our band was called Joe, Mark's brother, Joe, Mark's brother, because my brother Mark is on the drums. And I introduced the band one night like that, and I'm Joe, Mark's brother, and somebody said that should be the name of your band, and it just stuck. So anyway, so Brad produced this record for us called Around the Year with Joe, Mark's brother. Josh Rouse was opening for Guster. Josh or David Gerke, they both take credit. David was the drummer for giving Guster, the guys, the CD. They fell in love with it. They were like, we want you guys to open up for us. And then we opened up for them, and it was like the big, the most merch we ever sold, the biggest crowds we ever played for, and the most fun we ever, you know what I mean? And so it was like, and then we just became buddies. And
did it feel like during that period, did you have the sense that you were gaining traction where you were like, yeah, this is working, it's just slow? Or was it nothing, and then one break?
Well, for us, it was nothing, and a lot of fits and starts, because there was another band at the time, and they're still sort of around. They did a record a few years ago called Jump Little Children. I don't know if you ever heard of them. So Jump Little Children back in the 90s was like the southern version of Guster in a way. They were like, they were like a southeast from Charles. I always get those towns mixed up. Charleston, the one that's on the coast of South Carolina, the cool Charleston one. Charleston,
I think so. Yeah,
and they were gracious to let us open for them, and same thing. It was like built-in audiences, but both bands said, now you have to go back and serve those markets again. You have to follow up to those markets. You just played these markets. Now get back and do them. But it was so hard to get anybody to. We couldn't really do a concerted effort of like, we didn't have a booking agent at the time, so getting back to those exact markets in a timely manner when we had the buzz was really way more challenging than we thought it was going to be. You know. And meanwhile, we always had the carrot dangle, and this is a different time period. So the carrot was always here of like, you're about to get a huge record deal, and all our friends were getting these huge record deals because they had so much money back then, and we were like, what about us? You know, we'd always get passed over. Yeah. And so it was always like, well, we're about to meet with so and so, and they're probably gonna. So don't worry about it. We don't have to. We're always like. We were always wondering, should we put our energies here or here? And really, the thing is, we should have been more. We should have just been like, what's that word where you just like do everything? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like kind of grassroots, like focus on the core audience and then let the other things happen as they happen.
Exactly.
It's funny that you mentioned the angst of the Mad Records people, because I remember about a year ago now, we had that show at 3rd and Lindsley that Cole played.
Which was amazing. I'm like, this is our community. I can't believe it. And it was jam-packed.
It was jam-packed. And I remember, because it was me, and I was hanging out with Cole, who was Cole Ritter, the artist. And it was Reed, and it was a couple other people. And then it was you and a couple of people from your circle. And I remember you guys kind of looking at us and being like, yeah, I remember that feeling. Because all of us are kind of like, we're a little pissed. We're like a little like frustrated. We're all like... We think we're good at what we're doing. We want to build something. We're really passionate about it, but you're frustrated at how slow it moves or how difficult it is. And on the same token, we're like, oh, but we've got this thing and we're really passionate about. And I remember you guys alluding to that fact and being like, I remember what that felt like. And in a way, it gave me a lot of peace because I was like, okay, this will end at some point, which is kind of nice.
Well, two things that I also picked up on was like, maybe I conveyed this to you or not. I can't remember. It was like, I was like, this is how you do it, though. You guys, I felt like you were doing it right. And I also felt like the sort of level of talent and sort of proficiency, and I don't want to say the word polished because that sounds negative in a way, like polished, but it was like, I'm saying it in a good way where it's like, almost like realized, like everybody on that stage felt like a realized artist to me. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, first gig, you know, this is my song about, you know what I mean? It was like more like, these people are ready to go, you know, and I was very impressed, you know.
Well, it's weird. You almost see more polished acts at unsigned shows than you do at signed shows at times now because of the whole social media dynamic of things where the record labels are plucking people that are going viral or people that are making a lot of money very quickly by going viral, and those are typically a lot of unseasoned people. Like freaking Cole's been playing since he was 6 months old or whatever, you know what I mean? He's like, I picked up a fiddle when I was in the womb, and I'm like, so he's been playing for forever, but then you get these people that get plucked off of social media and get thrown onto a headlining act, and you can feel that, you know? So that was the genesis of Mad Records. It was a simple theory, was go to every major city in the US, walk into a bar, ask someone at the bar who's the one artist that should be signed that isn't, and then sign that person. And that was how we signed Cole Ritter. And I was like,
I mean, it makes total sense.
I was like, this seems like this should work, you know? And those artists are out there and they're unsigned right now.
Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense. Because if you think about it, like I remember like I've worked with two people that were like TikTok people. They were like from the TikTok thing where it's like, shit, I gotta record music now. And both of it, in my case, both artists were actually very realized, and they weren't just lucky. They were already really great at what they were doing, and then just started sharing it. Yeah. But I've heard stories from other producer friends of mine. It's like, whereas sometimes they'll work with these young artists that got TikTok famous, and they're like, I don't even know how I did this. I lucked into this song, and now it's kind of a gangbuster thing, and it's like the first or second song I ever wrote.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to write songs. And so it's kind of like, in that case, you know, when you talk about your roster, where it's like, these people are like, you know, I just worked with Reed and Zoe Nye, and it was like,
we just did a production breakdown of that song an hour ago.
Amazing.
Of unbelievable.
Which one was it?
Strange Religion.
I don't know any titles.
Which one
I'm
is
asking
it?
as if
know.
like I'm gonna. Oh yes,
It was
I
the
remember
real
that one.
spooky,
You know,
the spooky one with the bowed bass and all of the.
Oh yeah,
yeah, really
cool.
good. Yeah,
she's a great artist. I mean, I'm like, here's this person who's like, you know, just one of the people I met at Cole's roundtable meeting that night, and just like one of so many talented people in your crew that I'm just like, wow, you know.
Well, that's the funny thing about kind of my job is like, all I'm doing is just finding people that are already insanely talented and then trying to kind of help organize people in a direction. I always say, I'm like, did you see the Elvis biopic?
I didn't see it yet.
I'm like the Tom Hanks character. I'm like the old, like, disgusting guy who's like, I'm gonna turn you into a star. It's like, I'm just finding really talented people and then trying to organize a business around it or whatever. But like, these people are so unbelievably talented, and that was my core frustration, especially coming out of the world of finance, was like, I understood the mechanism of why money was no longer flowing to smaller artists. And you have these corporate behemoths that, even if you want to say they're not being malicious, they're just so big and bloated that 95% of these labels or music companies are middle management. And when you're middle management, you don't feel connected enough to the grassroots to feel like you want to do that. And you don't feel connected enough to like the decision makers that you feel like you actually have a say in what's happening. And so you end up with this environment that creates no risk taking.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are the ones that are true artists are the ones that take risks, and those are the people that you have to sign and the people that you want to support. At least that's how I view it. I don't know.
Well, where were you 30 years ago? You were still...
I should have been, yeah. I should have been an old school label.
Like, if we met 30 years ago, like all the things you're talking about, it was the kind of stuff that we always thought too. We're like, you know, we just want to do it on, like, sort of not on our terms per se, but just like we believed in what we were doing, and we thought as long as we could just keep there was no problem. Like, it didn't have to be dumbed down in any way. It didn't have to be thought about, and you know, it was just like, here's this, now take this and do this with it, you know.
Right.
You know, we were really interested in we had an experience in the summer of 2000, and it was like right when we had done our record and we had no booking agent yet, and we were itching to go, you know what I mean? And I was always a little more of like an experimenter, so I was like, let's have this. I really wanted this experiment of driving across the country and busking, you know, with our that was the way we sort of launched our record. And
you brought the battery packs, right?
We bought these battery packs.
Yeah, I know this.
It was the best summer of my life, and like, you know, and I kind of had this instinct at the time of like, and I didn't know how, you know, whatever prescient it was going to be, which was, I really wanted people to see what people thought of us without any previous notions of what we were, or who like sort of stamped our brand for approval. You know what I mean? There were no posters, there were no media about it, there was no affiliations. It was just, here we are at face value on a street corner in the middle of your town. What's going to happen? You know? And it was so real and visceral. And now it would be impossible to actually do that. Like literally impossible, because somebody could be like, what's their... And they could be, they're friends with so and so. They already have 5,000. They have 10,000.
Yeah.
You know, there was no social media yet. There was nothing like that. We had this shitty cell phone that was like hardly worked.
Yeah. It's weird because it's almost like a social credit score that streaming has imposed on artists, where like by the time you are listening to an artist, your perception is already tainted by what you perceive their traction is. And there's a lot of really nasty side effects to that too, which is like literally my job. If I could say my job is one thing now, it's telling people to stop running ads to their music to just get their numbers up. There's so many people that are just hemorrhaging money, spending money to try and get their streaming count up because it quote unquote looks good, you know? And then comes time to play a show and they can't sell any tickets, or they can't book a venue or whatever the case is, because there's no real fan base there. It's just numbers on a screen. And I miss the days of where, well, I say I miss the days, I was around for them, but like it sounds nice to live in an era where you were judged on, at some point you were judged on the craft itself, or did it make you feel something or not.
Right. And it wasn't perfect, because it wasn't that really.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of...
It was also like, you know, it was almost like, I think part of for me is like the frustration of like, we're so far under the radar and that sucks, but we're so far under the radar. What can we play with that is experimental and gives us a feedback? You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's almost like taking something negative and seeing the gifts in it. And that's what we did. It was like, man, and that experience was really eye-opening, and we met the coolest people, and we were met with such overwhelming gratitude and giving. Like there was so much giving, and it was almost like overwhelming to be on the receiving end of it. And it was real, you know. It wasn't because they thought we were famous or they thought we were this. It was just like, you guys are all right. Come play my club next week, or I want to help you. I want to, you know what I mean? Like, I want to help you do this, or I want to help you do that, or here's a bunch of pizza. Take a break, guys. You know what I mean? Like, just sweetheart energy the whole time.
Yeah, it's that grassroots thing, and that's kind of what we've tried to do with Mad Records. Is like, we feel the same way. We're like, freaking, you know, we're under the radar. We're doing such good stuff, and we've got such good people, and everybody's so talented. I mean, like the artists, like even Eli, our producer, and everybody's just so talented, and we want everybody to get their due. And in the meantime, I was like, well, let's use this, because people relate a lot more to us than they do to, like, you know, the massive artists. You know, I mean, Taylor Swift just got married at Madison Square Garden. It's like, we feel more relatable than the major artists. And I was like, so if we can galvanize people and say, hey, like, you know, artists like Cole or Abigail or Zoe or whoever, they're the ones that are relatable. These are the faces of the people, you know?
Yeah.
You can really tap into that, and there's a lot of energy there, and there's a lot of desire to support those people.
Absolutely.
I have another question for you. So I asked this to artists that I really respect as artists, because I want to get their opinion on it. So this is a complete left turn on the conversation, but I want to ask you. A lot of times when people are talking about writing a song, they throw out these little platitudes like, oh, you know, I just open the door and let the muse in, and whatever happens, and it's, you know, I'm not really writing the song, I'm channeling some other, and then just say that, and then they just let it hang out there, and they never go any deeper on that, right?
Yeah.
I like to go one step deeper on that question and say, what do you actually think is happening when you create music?
You know, that's a good question. There's the whole concept of being at play, you know what I mean, that I feel is really important, you know, and I feel like being at play, engaging flow, those are two really important values for me as far as a lifestyle choice and a sort of sane way to deal with creativity. Like, also, it could be different than, you know, it could be different than play. Sometimes it's reverent, you know what I mean? Sometimes you're dealing with something that's heavy, and the music can give you a soothing feeling too. It could be like, so you could push into that, or so I don't know, man. It's like okay. I'm gonna put it this way. Put it this way. I just put out the last record I put out was the most vulnerable record I put out. I never push it on the socials or anything, because I feel like I almost didn't release it, because I'm like, it feels very like personal. It feels like a personal journal. but it was all piano stuff that was coming to me at the time, and I knew that it was coming from a place that felt over my pay grade of my knowledge.
Yes.
And so I was like, I don't know how I'm making this stuff up. You know what I mean? And in a way, I was like, well, I that feels reverent to me, where I'm like, this is coming from something a little bit further than I feel, like further than depth I feel I naturally have.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's spiritual. Maybe that's a gift. And so I better put it down. You know what I mean? And that was that. Without getting, there's no self-importance in that. It's more less self-importance. More like, I don't even know how I'm making this stuff up.
Right.
But it feels like, and it was like also channeled through like, you know, my abilities, which are not like, I'm not a virtuoso. I'm more like, I could sort of use the piano as like a tool for understanding harmony or doing a right-handed overdub here and there. So it's like, but to sort of hobble through it. And I also thought there was some kind of value in there that's beyond my understanding. And so that, to me, having that be my last touchstone of relatability with a writing process that was mysterious, that was pretty cool. You know,
I asked the question because now as AI stuff is coming to the forefront, I deal with people that are panicking every single day and saying, you know, AI is going to replace songwriters, or it's going to replace producers or musicians or whatever. And I understand that, but I think anybody who's written music, like myself included, you have these moments where you're like, something weird is going on here, right? And everybody always kind of just hints at them. And like every interview I listen to, people are like, yeah, you know, I just let the music in and it just plays for an hour, and I'm like, what is that what you actually believe? Like, is that what's actually happening, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that conversation is going to get more important because people are going to start to have to ask the question of like, is there something different going on when a human writes music than when a machine writes music? And I'm just fascinated at each person's kind of experience with that.
I'm 100% here for it. And I feel like at first I'm like, I felt all the feelings about AI too. It's like, oh shit, you know, like that, you know, we'd be sending around all this stuff that people would do on AI. I was like, I can't believe somebody was able to do this out of a prompt, you know? But at the same time, I feel like in a weird way, like it's kind of like there's a sigh of relief with the AI right now of like, we could finally relax, because if people want perfection, they can find it here. But we don't have to be also responsible for that. We can respond now into what makes this person have a personality. We can go back into what it used to feel like. When there's always a mythical past, you know. My past seems mythical to you because I was a few years ahead of you. And to me, I look at the people from like the 70s and 80s like, man, that's a mythical past because they didn't have like, you know, everything wasn't judged by it needs to be this, that, or the other, you know? But I feel like we could finally start to maybe all live together in that mythical now, which is like, hey, you know what? Like the last record I did, I decided to, it was a rock record, and I was like, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna like disregard everything I think I know about music. I'm gonna not worry about the click track, the blah blah blah. I'm not gonna worry about anything. I'm listening to music, and it was a record that I was producing and engineering at the same time, so I had full ability to be objective and view it from afar. Like I wasn't playing at the same time or anything. So I was like, if I'm being moved, then I feel like that's good. And rather than worrying about like the things that sometimes I would get caught up in, just as anybody, because you want stuff to be awesome, and so you're like, oh, we have to make sure that this is good. Not that we live and die by the grid, but just because we, you know, it would make it easier later. And I'm like, you know what? None of that matters. And the vocals need to be emotional, and they have personality. And I'm not going to worry about that. You know, they need to have authority and feeling rather than perfection. You know what I mean? And it was really fun. It was like sort of a relief to work like that again.
I really like that perspective. And I think you put words to something that I've been kind of feeling a lot lately too, which is this idea of like, most of building Mad Records and most of what I've done has taken place online. And now with AI, all of that online space is getting so competitive because there's just so much content out there. There's so much content. Anybody can write emails. You can have ChatGPT write you a year's worth of emails in a day, whatever the case is. And so everything is just getting harder and harder and harder from a digital marketing standpoint. And so I've been thinking about that, and it's like, it feels like the universe is kind of just nudging me back out into the real world. And I'm kind of like, don't want to leave the safety of my home office, and I'm like, no, I want to stay here and keep building. And the universe is kind of like, go shake some hands and talk to some people again. That's why we brought the podcast back in person, because there's something about having you in this room that makes the conversation way different, and having Eli over there and having the lights, and like, it makes it totally different. And I think you're right that AI is making people appreciate that again, which I think is almost a huge relief if that's the thing that you enjoy.
I agree. It's like the band I was just working with, is this band called Moses Pray from Omaha, and they're good buddies of mine. I worked on a record with them 25 years ago, and we hadn't done a record since then. But it was like, anyway, so they were back, and we're taking an ear break, and I'm playing them stuff like, hey, check out Cole just released this single, and then I'm like, and also check out the live version.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, it's just great to see, like, where it's like, okay, here's a big production that's Cole in the studio. Great. He's great at it. You know what I mean? This sounds really convincing. But also, take it back and strip it all down from all the ingredients and see the core element. And if, you can feel the reality of it. It's really... it packs a punch, you know what I mean? And I think like having those these little time capsules of right now is going to be really important in the future, you know what I mean? Like, and I think the kids, I always say, like the kids, whatever the kids are, they're gonna respond to that, because they're gonna be like, oh, that's what people can do, you know what I mean? And, and even like for me, like we've been doing so much live music this year. Like I've played more live this year than in the last 10 years combined. And I'm in like one and a half improv bands. Like sometimes I get asked to join this one, but there's another improv band. We've been playing like 3 times a month on average, and it's so fun. You know what I mean? It's just so fun to just be with people and getting into that mind meld where it's like, we don't even know what's going to happen. We're like all the way out on the edge of the cliff together. And that togetherness is what it creates, like a beautiful, it's like, there's nothing else like it in the world. It's very sensual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and it's cool to see young people that are that still understand the value of that beyond like all this other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the challenge with Mad Records, and I think that's like the existential challenge that I feel like everybody's facing right now is like, can people lengthen their attention spans back? Can they get control of their attention spans back and go venture back out into the real world? Because I know it's like uncomfortable to like, when it's 9 o'clock and you have the option of going to a show or going on YouTube or whatever for the night, it's really hard to like get out and go be around people, and people, your social battery gets drained and stuff. But I'm trying desperately to like claw that back, because that if we lose that, then I feel like we're really screwed. And that's been the challenge with Mad Records, is like, how do you take an artist like Cole, who, if you see Cole play live, you're like, okay, this is incredible. Like, what more do I
questions?
need? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you walk out and you're like, okay,
yeah,
that guy's incredible. Like, it should be so easy to market somebody like that.
Yeah.
And yet, the way that you can get people to understand it is to actually have to go experience it first. And anytime you try and take what Cole does and package it into digital content, you lose something. There's something in that transference that gets lost. And it's the core thing that makes Cole Cole. So that's the challenge.
Yeah.
But I feel like as AI stuff happens, and like you said, as perfection is more kind of readily available, people are starting to go outside their comfort zones and start to look for things that actually move them again. And that's why I think artists like that are in good position. You just got to kind of wait for that tide to come to them, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I think about, my Guster brethren, they were always, they got recognized and signed because I remember their A&R guy who, they always stayed friends with their first A&R guy, this guy Foy Johnson, and I was driving up with him to one of the guys in the band's wedding. We were driving from New York to Maine to go to the wedding. He's like, I was like, somebody told me about this band selling out Irving Plaza in New York, unsigned. I'm like, I got to see these guys, and it's like I was blown away. I brought the paperwork the next morning. You know what I mean? Because like they were already selling out. They didn't need any help. They were already doing it, and so it was like, okay, let's just take this and scale it then. You know what I mean? But I think those guys always had a keen. I know they always had a keen awareness of like, this is where, like, there's like, you have to make great records, but also like really service the fans and really, keep returning to these markets and keep doing, they still sort of loved to do it. They still, like, they were bummed during the pandemic to not be able to play. They were like, this is what we do. And it was really, I could tell, it was really weighing on them that they weren't able to go out and play. That's where they get their joy, and then they give that joy, and then, it's a win-win kind of thing,
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about this with artists that for the last 10, 20 years, everybody's been obsessed with the breadth of their reach, how many people I can reach. And now we're kind of transitioning to this era where it's like, how many times can I reach the same person over and over again? Because that's how you actually build a real audience. Like, if everything that you just mentioned, everybody's saying you need to go back, you need to re-engage that audience. One impression with that person is not enough. You have to re-engage that audience over and over and over again, just to embed yourself in their consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, the example that I use with the artists I work with is like, let's say a new restaurant opens up in your town. The first time you drive past that restaurant, you go, oh, hey, they're opening up a new restaurant. You don't immediately drive in and go for dinner, right?
Yeah.
You go, oh, hey, they're opening up a new restaurant. The second time you drive by, you're like, oh, it's an Italian place. That's cool. Like, we don't have many of them around here. Third, fourth time, you're like, oh, there's a line around the block, or so-and-so said that they went there. And then fifth, sixth, or seventh time is where you go, like, you're sitting around on Friday and your wife goes, where do you want to go for dinner? And you're like, oh, let's go to that Italian place. So re-engagement, I feel like, has always been the most important part about building an artist project.
Yeah.
And everybody's been so obsessed with virality, where it's like you're trying to reach as many people as possible that they forgot to re-engage the same people multiple times.
Well, that goes to the depth versus breadth thing. You know what I mean? And I think that also applies to musically too. You could try to follow trends musically and get more of a cast more of a wide net, or you could just be more in what your essence is, and then cast a deeper, like almost create like more of a super fan thing. You know what I mean? Like people who are legitimately, and I feel like those fans are the ones who, if that restaurant blew your mind and you were like, man, I've been to a lot of Italian restaurants, you guys have to come with us next time. And it's like, so-and-so is coming back to town. We have to go to you guys have to see Cole. We just can't explain it. You just have to come see Cole with us when he comes back. And they tell two friends and so on. It's like part of the reason I like house concerts, because it feels like people who are like super fans are like, you guys are going to be so psyched when these guys come. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they kind of and they're sort of like, you could see them where they're like, right, I was right. You know what I mean? And they're like, like when it works, you know what I mean? You can see that they're proud and they feel like, it's almost like when you learn how to cook something really well, and you're like, I want to have people over when I cook this next.
Right. It just takes a long time to get that to actually the word of mouth stuff.
It does,
and that's, I think, the frustration. You're probably sick of hearing podcast ads, so we do something a little different on this podcast. Every week, we sponsor an independent artist and feature one of their songs on the Mad Records podcast. And this week, you're listening to Eclipse by Joe Pisapia. It's a great song. It's big and anthemic and exciting. And if you want to hear this song and more of their music, we're going to tag their music in the Substack post below. Make sure you go check it out. Eclipse. If you want your music featured on the Mad Records podcast, all you have to do is upgrade to become a paid subscriber of our Substack. It's only $10 a month, and you'll have the chance to submit your music to our team for the chance to be featured. If you want to check out Joe Pisapia's music, we'll drop the links in the Substack post below, and we hope you'll join us as a paid subscriber so we can feature your music moving forward. The Mad Records merch store is now live on our website, so if you're interested in picking up a hat, a shirt, a hoodie, and supporting what we do, head over to madrecordscollective.com/merch and use promo code MadRecordsPodcast to get 10% off your merch order. It's how we grow the podcast. It's how we pay our producer, Eli.
Yeah, who was the merch designed by?
The merch was designed by producer Eli, so make sure you go check it out and support him and what he's doing, and be sure to use promo code Mad Records Podcast to get a little discount too. I've been writing on Substack for over 2 years now, and this week we just launched a brand new newsletter. It's called How to Market Your Music and Still Sleep at Night. And what this newsletter is going to be is a 40 to 50 part series that is going to teach you literally everything that I know about music marketing, audience building, monetization, and how to do it all while still feeling like you're a good person. So every single week, I'm going to be teaching a new concept, and we're going to be going my entire understanding of music marketing from start to finish over the course of the next year. If you want access to that newsletter, you got to become a paid subscriber. It's only $10 a month. That's like the cost of like a fancy coffee. It's going to be one of the most in-depth deep dives on music marketing that I've ever done. So we'd love to have you along for the journey. Go ahead and become a paid subscriber. It's only $10 a month, and you'll get access to all the previous chapters up until this point as well. And I hope to see you in there. I want to go back to a little bit with your career as well. So like, did you feel like that was the advantage for Guster? Because Guster seems like it's cult audience, niche following, like super engaged. Was that the trick? Was like, these are our people and we're gonna kill for these people, as opposed to we're gonna change ourselves a million different ways to make us the prettiest girl at the ball for the labels?
It was always, those guys were really smart at all the whole dance. Like like they would dance with all of it. You know what I mean? And they did it in a very non-judgmental way. They would always be like, okay, let's just look at this stuff at face value and see what has to be done, you know. And I was humbled by like being around those guys, because they were sort of grown up about it, you know what I mean? And they had grown up together in it. And so, you know, one of the things that I always liked, that one time they said, one of the guys from Bare Naked Ladies said to them, is like, look, you could sell out to the boy or you could sell out to the man. And the man has money, you know what I mean? It's like, so either like, I don't know, they were like, they would say things like that, these little axioms. I'm like, I'm gonna come and think about that, you know what I mean? Just, they had all these like sort of sayings for stuff that were like, and how they applied them, you know what I mean? How they, you know, because I remember when we were writing that one record and we had that song Satellite, and I'm like, man, we were trying to, like, I was like, let's try to write a hit. Like, let's, like, I love hits. Like, I was listening to whatever, like, I was just clicking the radio stations on the way here, and that song Time After Time, Cyndi Lauper, came on. I'm like, this is a timeless hit. You know what I mean? I'm here for it. I came for Cyndi Lauper. I stayed for the chorusy guitar.
Well, I want you to talk a little bit more about that, because that's been the one thing that's been interesting to me about Nashville is that everyone is so talented, and a lot of times their audience is other artists out here.
Yeah.
That everybody is trying to make a great song, but also kind of show other artists their chops at the same time. And me, a guy from Scranton, Pennsylvania, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what you guys are doing. Like, I can't access this. I'm sure it's super impressive, but they're like doing all these crazy, diminished chords and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm sure this is super impressive. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Hey, a guy from Scranton can play a diminished chord.
Yeah.
Okay?
This guy
there.
That's right.
This guy
but
can.
you're also a musician.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you're not so far off. Like, you're not like the kind of dude who's just like, I just push
Right.
paper, you know what I mean, and pencils. You're like, I've heard your music, and I know you know about deep in that way too. That's a whole nother part of your personality. That's sort of like your Adam West Batman thing, you know what I mean? But like
Totally.
but it's kind of, but it's, I hear you, and I feel like I'm totally guilty of it, because it's like part of it is almost like, okay, so I have a lot to say about this, because part of it is like whenever we go out to see music and like young bands come on, I'm like, man, these young bands are so cool. They're all like, their songwriting is so like advanced from where it was when we moved here. Like when we moved here in '94, like you had to use 3 chords, maybe 4. If you want to put the 6 minor in, we'll allow it. But you know what I mean? Like, but we prefer you stick to 1, 4, and 5. So it's like, and so when I hear these kids and they're putting like major 7s and minor 7s and diminished and half diminished, I'm like, ooh. And it's sort of, for me, like I grew up, that era of composition was like on the radio as a little kid, like laying in the backseat of my dad's car going, oh, what is that? What is that? Like that's just very dreamy sounding to me. And then when you get older, you're like, that's what that is. That's really deep. It's cool. And I'm talking about pop songs. I'm talking about like, Paul McCartney and Wings being on the radio, and like, Stephen Bishop or whatever, even like, really, really soft rock stuff that was, and yacht rock, was like, and when I hear these kids like challenging yacht rock, I'm like, I'm in, I feel like it's because also the reason I like it is because it feels a little bit like bucking the system, because it's kind of like, I used to feel like there was kind of a war on joy, you know what I mean? War on joy, war on beauty. Like a war, it had to be like, even the whole alternative thing was a real bummer for me coming where I was coming from, because when they put the word I remember we had this manager at the time, and he said, the next big music, the next big genre I've been hearing from industry veterans is going to be alternative. I'm like, what does that even mean? What do you mean alternative? It means to buck the system. And then they co-opted it into something that was it had a very neat boundary system. It was like, well, that's not alternative. You have to, there has to be, the guitars have to go through a JCM 900, or, you know what I mean? It was like very, very niche. And we were very naughty. Like we were like, I don't care. We're going to put pedal steel. If we want pedal steel, we're going to play major 7s. We were just wanting to be ourselves. And, that's why I see these kids. I feel like they're being themselves. I see it as that. Maybe there is a little bit of, hey, check me out, Berkeley chops or whatever. Maybe there's a little bit of that.
No, I think that's my question is like you mentioned the song Satellite. That song seems like such a perfect marriage of this is a hit. This is a song that me from Scranton, I can access and enjoy, and also bucks the system. So. Because if you just go into, because I've been guilty of this with Mad Records, where it's like when I first started Mad Records, I was like, let's disrupt the major labels and let's screw this part and screw that, hey, and screw that person too, and that type of thing. And then you just ultimately end up being like you're only a reference to other things. I'm anti that thing. I'm anti that thing. You're not pro something. I'm not saying what I am. And so I feel like a song like Satellite is like you're writing a hit, but you're also bucking the system at the same time. So how do you balance those two things? Or how did you balance those two things?
I mean, honestly, I didn't feel like there was much bucking going on as much as we were trying to make the most delicious snack, like a Dorito flavored song. You know what I mean? Like that was our version of that. I think that any bucking was probably accidental or by the grace of some higher spirit, because I felt like that was us going full bore.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's probably so ingrained. Like your full bore is still probably going to be
it's
more disruptive.
Exactly. It's like I'm not a purebred. The music is never purebred. It's always got a little some
little zest.
What is that?
Yeah, a little stank.
That's not quite there. It's like I made this record during the pandemic with my friend Gillette Johnson, who's a great artist, and I said, here's what I want to do. And every record, I feel like you have like rules around it, like where it's like, and just so you could limit your, not have option anxiety, or like, let's just say that this record's going to do these kind of things. And they're always like, there could be exceptions, but I'm like, we're going to make our version of a pop record, knowing that we're not going to nail it. Like, we're not going to do Max Martin. We're not going to do, Billie Eilish, or Olivia Rodrigo, but let's sort of aspire to that, what we think that is, without being literal. And so that was a really fun exercise.
Do you ever, or have you ever let yourself go like, I'm going to do the Max Martin thing, or I'm going to do do you think you got that gear?
Well, see, for me, like, and when you say that, like, even when you say that, like, I always take like sort of, I'd have to do it from a glimpse of it rather than study it, because if I get if I study it too deep, and maybe no, I would actually be totally up for that, to be honest, but I'd also know that it would be bastardized by my own, like, whatever, my Jersey, whatever, like my ragamuffin energy that's like rough around the edges or whatever. I would probably really be into that. In fact, the band I just worked with after 25 years, the way I met them 25 years ago is they were a boy band. And somebody had called me and asked me to produce this boy band. And I was like, I'm like the most power pop, like nerd, like wear a suit and tie to every show. Like, and we were so like sort of Kinks and Beatles, like pure about, and I was like, boy band, like I'm not doing that. And then I'm 32 years old. I have $50 in my bank account, and my car breaks down in Pennsylvania, and I'm stranded. I'm coming back from Vermont doing a little show up there. And I'm like, hey, you still got that boy band? And so I'm like, I have no idea what we're doing, but we did this cool record. And it was the first record I ever did, like where I produced and engineered on my own. I had produced before, but never engineered on my own. And we figured it out, and we just listened to it the other night, like after work. We were working, and we're like, one of the guys had it on his computer, and we put it on, and we were just drinking beers, listening to it, just laughing and going, we did pretty good. Like, I'd be like, what if we did this, and what if we did that? And to me, it's just like, I don't know, it's like having art supplies. Like, we got all this stuff, what are we gonna make? Let's make something cool, and thinking what, I've heard that before, let's do that, you know what I mean? Whatever, like, just play around, have some fun.
I have one more question, and then we've got a little segment. We're going to do some news headlines. But I was listening to an interview with you where you were talking about insecurity and how every time you go into the studio, you're learning stuff about yourself, and you're still dealing with your own inner insecurities every single time, and how that's part of the process you enjoy. I mean, it's like the artist thing of like, it's something that you really enjoy and it's something that makes you miserable, is this like dealing with your own insecurities. So when you work with an artist like Ben Folds, or any of the artists here on a daily basis, because everybody's so talented, when I look at you and where you're at, I see someone who is obviously the best at what they do and so equipped and well adjusted and all that. But do you still feel the same as you felt when you were 24 and you first moved here, in terms of that every day is a journey and something that you're discovering about yourself?
100%. Even this record last week, I'm like, there's no way we could pull this off.
Really?
Like, it's like, I'm like, how's this gonna happen? Like, I didn't do this right. I couldn't have done that right. That's not going to work. Like, and I mean, like, as far as just those thoughts are there, they're like a lot less real, but they're still like, you see them, it's like, and it's like, wait, why wouldn't that work? I've done this. I've done this 10,000 times, why wouldn't it work? And why wouldn't I know that this works enough so that I could allow myself to be a little looser with these rules and try something new? And I think that's what makes you go, well, be careful there. Like the voices that say, oh, what if that doesn't work? It's like, okay, if that doesn't work, then I fix it right away. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes from the fact that, like, I feel like the recording process is so sacred. Like, where it's like, because of that concerted effort of people coming together, like, it's in order to respect all these people's time and energy, and knowing that the people that we know, like all these amazing musicians that we know, they are ready to give you results like right then and there. Like
Yeah.
the first time, you better be ready to capture it, because the first time might be the best time. And so those are the things that make me nervous if I think about them. I've gotten better at not letting those demons come up too much and get too real. That's where I've gotten better. But they're still always there. You know?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I feel like I deal with that, and it's gotten worse since I moved out to Nashville because everybody's so good here that you're like, it's very, very easy to compare here and say, well, this person is so this or that person's so much better than, that it becomes hard. And the antidote to that has been trying to figure out, okay, well, what is it that I do well? And I'm going to do that thing really well. And then I'm going to surround myself with people who complement that skill set or whatever the case is, you know, but it seems like it's a lifelong journey at that point.
I think so too.
Joe,
100%.
I do have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm curious if there was one point in your career where you felt like, I need to focus on this more than anything else, because you're the type of guy that is doing something new all the time. And
Yeah.
that seems like your philosophy, like day to day. So did you feel like there was doubt in not having one thing that you could like stay true to, or do you feel like you're just ready for any opportunity that comes your way?
Well, I feel like it's seasonal, you know what I mean? Like, even when I first built my studio, and then I was like, okay, I have to learn what this place is, and I have to learn how to get sounds here. So for a couple of years, I was like telling all my producer friends, like, I would like to engineer your records and not produce for a couple of years, so I could really get into the sonics of it and get that under my belt and get really like almost to the point where it's rote, and I could kind of operate like more with more efficiency. And but then I also had to graduate. I had to be like, okay, that time period's over. You have to you have to tell yourself. And right now I'm at this thing where I'm like, okay, I haven't actually dealt with like some of my own music that's half finished for like years and years of stuff that's half finished, and I've made myself a little pact that like after I finish this thing I'm doing, I'm going to have some time for that, because I do tend to wear a lot of hats, and it does get stressful, because it's like, who am I really? Like, You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we do this winter residency. It used to be like we play a lot more, but I'm like, oh, every winter I get to be an artist again for January. And then I'm like, oh, back to producing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, I like that. I like that I have a very dynamic life, but you know, there is a trade-off of being like the jack of all trades and master of none. You know what I mean? So I'm always trying to figure out how to surf that line.
Yeah, and I feel that's true for a lot of musicians and artists in Nashville. Like, they're good at a lot of things and have trouble honing in on one thing, and that was something that I struggled with for a while, and then Michael kind of pushed me into like, I think if you try just focusing on one thing, it'll kind of help you out. And I felt like it has helped me out in a lot of ways. And I'm curious if there's anything that you might want to say to those artists that, you know, might be struggling with like not knowing what route they want to take. And
well, I do remember this. Like, I remember like and I like that we were talking about the real early days of me coming here, because it was like, okay, I moved here with my brother, and I was like, and you know, I was sort of like, shit, I'm moving my brother down here, meaning he's coming down to be part of the musical mission that we're doing together. And me being like the principal songwriter and stuff like that, I was like, I better make sure that we don't dilly-dally and we stay focused and we become hyper vigilant about being single-minded. And so people would ask me to produce stuff all the time back then, and I'd be like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I don't want to be distracted from my mission. And I kept that up for a number of years. And honestly, it was... I was dating a girl at the time. She had done these demos, and I thought, how much did these demos cost? And they were like, they cost $75,000. It was $25,000 a song, and I'm like, and these are the demos you did?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, they don't sound very good. And I'm like, could you get me $5,000 so we could redo these?
That's crazy.
And we did them, and they got a record deal, and then they let me produce that, and I was like, well, I could hire my band.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that would be like, but I was like more like, wait, really? Like, this is like, I was sort of offended by it, actually. I was like, this is not very good for who you guys are. And so I was sort of like, I could do that. I'll do it for this, and we'll make it more convincing. And so...
But use it to fuel the core thing, which was
in
the band.
a way, like it was probably not you know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, and then you guys play, you know what I mean? Like it was probably like a little bit like trying to rob Peter to pay Paul or whatever they call that. Yeah. But in my wisdom at the time, I was like, all right, well, that could be a win-win, and it worked out great. You know, everybody did great, but you know,
that was kind of okay. So I want to underline one thing you said, and then we'll do news. Just in what you just said, where you said, when I first built the studio, I spent the first couple of years just learning the space. To think in terms of years is such a rare thing nowadays in the first place. Like, so many people, because of social media or virality or whatever the case is, they think that they want quick. They want it to happen overnight. They want it to be fast. They want a 3-month course. They want a 6-month, boot camp, whatever the case is. And so the one thing that I think is great about what you do is you see the whole picture. And there was I've been doing my research, I listened to another interview with you where it just stuck out to me, where you were talking about like a mic preamp, and you were saying that when I A/B tested it with the mic preamp and without, you didn't notice the difference so much, but over the context of an entire record, you heard that preamp, and you said the word, you were like, it's cumulative. And I was like, that has so many lessons for my own life, in the fact that there are all these little tiny things that in context you don't see how they're making a difference, but when you stack them over each other for years and years and years and years and years, it builds into something really, really significant.
Yeah.
And I just think you're very good at that.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate that, and I do, and then in retort to that, I will say it's because of the 40,000 hours or the 20,000 hours. It's like you read all this stuff, like if you're going to get anything, if you're going to get good at anything, you're going to have to fail a lot, get used to failure, and that's the truth. You know what I mean? I remember my wife asking me, like, I'd be like struggling through a mix or whatever. And she's like, why do you have to mix records? So why do you have to be a mixer? You know what I mean? Can't you just be a producer? I'm like, the only way I'm going to get good at being a producer is if I have to sit in my own shit.
Yeah.
And like be like, I'll never make that choice again. And the reason why you don't do that, or the reason why you don't do this, the reason why you nip that in the bud is because if you don't do this, then it haunts you later. And it becomes hard to fix on the back end. You have to, that's why when you going full circle, the mastering.com formula, when I first read that, when you guys talked about working backwards, I'm like, finally, I feel heard. Because I'm like, it's only until the very end where you could tell, like, okay, here's how you make better choices in the beginning. You have to finish it. You have to see, like, go ahead and try and finish it now and see where you are. It's like, oh, and why is it really hard to finish? Well, the drums, first of all, are at a phase. It's like, well, it would have been better had you noticed that early on. You know what I mean? And blah, blah, blah. Or, a lot of that stuff can be still fixed, but it's like, but building on a solid foundation, and even like hearing drums in phase would be like, well, now I know what to do with the bass and the synth, because the low end synth, because my low end is actually, is actually moving the way it should. It's actually pulsing in a proper context. Like, so it helps you. It helps you know. Like even this record I just worked on, which we did something that I don't usually do ever anymore. I'm not about to do this a lot, which is we basically camped out. The guys stayed with me. We worked ridiculous hours. We were going to bed at 4 or 5 in the morning doing like stupid shit like we used to do 30 years ago, which was really fun. But I'm still like, I have to take 3 days to recover. But I'm like, until we sing and sign off on the vocals, we're not doing any overdubs. And we need to make the vocals convincing. You know what I mean? It's not just like we have a uncomped city. It has to be like presented with effects and everything, how it's going to be presented in the track. Then we'll put the overdubs in. And building the house really strategically so that it has like the perfect tensile strength of like to withstand any storm. You know what I mean? It's like make it solid, you know? And it was nice. It was a nice process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't always do that, but these were the rules du jour.
Well, you're patient.
You know what I mean?
You're patient. That's the thing. Like you take your time, which I think is a lost art in many ways.
Well, I remember having this theory about 10 years ago, whereas like I know I'll have job security because I know how to summon an attention span. I feel like that's all you need in this business.
Right.
Like if you can have an attention span in the studio, like and actually pay attention, like you're going to do well. You're going to do well because you know you'll get your tools and you'll get your techniques, but if you have the ability to pay attention, that's half the battle. In this current, you know, with all the shit that we're
totally. All right, let's do some news. So we do a segment. We read a couple news headlines. We react in real time. So we want your spiciest takes on the headlines. So Eli's going to read us.
All right. Headline number 1: Black Sabbath drummer Bill Ward reveals he now uses a wheelchair, but he can still play pretty good for 78. Wow. Is what he says. He first began using the wheelchair occasionally about 18 months ago, mostly in airports, but has started depending on it more following his 78th birthday, which I think is pretty badass.
Me too.
You know, to like come out and admit like, hey, you know what, I'm getting older, but I'm still slapping the skins, you know?
I love that. Have you seen Joni Mitchell recently, how she tours?
No.
Because a lot of the students that we work with at Mad Records are 50 plus or whatever, and I always talk to them about like, you should incorporate that into your art. That's a beautiful thing. Not a lot of artists.
I love that you think that way too.
Yeah, you don't get to hear a lot from artists that are 50 plus. So I don't want to hear you sing a song that a 20-year-old could write. I want to hear your perspective or whatever. But Joni Mitchell, she tours with this like she sits in this like throne with a like golden scepter, and she sits like this, and she has the mic here like this, and she just sings. And I'm like, now that's how you freaking age. Because I see bands that are like from the hair metal days that are getting older and they're still like wearing the chokers and stuff, and you're like, dude, you know, might be time to kind of like, hey, let's evolve this thing, you know? So I think the wheelchair's sick.
I remember this is a personal experience of like our bass player in our band, Joe Mark's brother, James Haggerty. He fell down and crushed his ankle and had to be on like in a wheelchair for like 6 months. And it was the outside of Grimey's, you know, and they're like, you guys got to play the Friday thing, you know. I was like, can you do it? I'm like, I called Hags. I'm like, can you do it? He's like, fuck yeah, I can do it. It's like, and he's like, you guys will have to get me on the stage, you know. And of course, my invitation is like over exaggerated. You get me on the stage. And you know, a couple guys lift me up on a chair. I'll have to sit down, you know. But he had his leg up like it was like a cast on this thing.
Like a pillow.
He's playing bass,
like,
you know what I mean? Like,
the
couple guys got him up there and brought him down to his wheelchair, and it was like,
that's
man, heroic. You know,
that's rock and roll.
That's what it's about, man.
That's what it's about. I love that story. I think that's, and you know, I just think it's badass. It's like Def Leppard's drummer. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you know what? I could still come up with all these parts and ideas, and we figured out a way to like have me get it done. It's like, yes, let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I agree 100%. Headline number 2.
Headline number 2. Justin Bieber joins BTS, Shakira, and Madonna as co-headliner of FIFA World Cup final halftime show.
Oh.
Thoughts on FIFA World Cup? Have you been watching?
Man,
are you excited for that halftime show?
I feel like such a like. This is where I get. Like, I'm like in a totally other world. Like, my wife and I are like, somebody was like, you guys watching the World Cup? I'm like, no, I know it's on. Like it's always like everyone's
What
on
is
that.
this World
But
Cup?
we're so like not sports people at all. Like to a point where my dad would be like, "You got to know a little something about sports," and so I say more power to him. I actually, Justin Bieber's like those tracks are like a guilty pleasure. Like they just sound so. Like that's like genius pop. Like I'm like kind of a fan of that stuff too.
Do you listen to modern pop?
Well, because my wife does, so I'll be like,
okay.
"What do you got on over there?" You know what I mean?
Right.
And
What's
I
that
like
ear
it.
candy?
I love pop. You know what I mean? I think pop is the best because it's like, here's your ingredients. You get badass, fucking great lyric, great melody. You get something that's harmonic content to let you know why the melody is the melody, and then you get groove, and that's it. And then there's some effects and some cool like ear candy.
Right.
So it's to me, it's among the coolest. It's like you have to be so good to make pop. You know what I mean? That I feel like that's why I do what I do because I'm like sort of
That's funny.
not good enough to make pop.
Did you listen to Olivia Rodrigo's new album?
No, not yet. But
You
I
should
bet it's
really
awesome.
listen. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
I made me feel really good about the state of pop because I really enjoyed it.
Her
But
production is always so good.
Yeah.
on the record.
Oh,
So
it was
it's-
amazing.
I'm sure it's amazing.
It's really good, and I feel like also a little bucking the trend too because it's not like classic pop.
I was psyched when I heard like Billie Eilish. Because the guitar's coming back, man.
Yeah.
Even guitars at all. For a while there, it's like guitars were like, yeah, that's old dad rock. Or whatever.
Guitars
It's
are
like,
back.
Come on, man, guitar.
Yeah.
Guitar's back in a way that I could feel like I could be like, wait, you want me to be Jersey Joe, like 17-year-old Jersey Joe on this? It's like that's not only allowed, it's encouraged.
Oh,
so I'm
yeah.
like, lately I've been getting my rocks off like on tracks. I'm like,
Jersey Joe.
They're like, yeah, but that's what we want, dude. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been like trying to get that on my system for years. So
yeah.
it's kind of fun.
I've been tuned into the World Cup. I sports. If I wasn't doing music, I was gonna try and be a GM in the NFL. That was what I was. Well, funny story. You'll appreciate this story. This will tell you a lot about my personality. I loved football, and I decided that I was going to be a walk-on college quarterback. I had never played a down of football my entire life, but I decided I loved football, and I was going to be a walk-on college quarterback. And I started training, and I remember this is crazy. I was on the treadmill one day doing sprints, and it was one of those moments. I think it was the first one of many times in your life that I think you'll probably relate to. It was one of those moments where I was on the treadmill doing a sprint, and I went, what am I doing? Like, this is never gonna happen. Like, I've never played it down. I'm like 6'4", I'm like 5'11" at the time or whatever. I'm like, in what world am I gonna be? And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll be a GM for a college team, and but then it's transformed 9 different times. But sports was gonna be my my thing before music.
Love that.
I think it's a good quality about you. That's something that I like about you is that you're willing to be a little insane. You know.
We
Yeah,
go right into deep waters. That's what I like about you too. It's like I'm diving right in. I see what happens.
I said this to my wife once. I was like, I think my core talent is I really believe the things that I'm go after. And she's like, yeah, you really do. They all don't, most don't work. But when you hit the one that does, man, if you're not going at it 100% and you hit the right thing, then it's still not going to work. So I look back on that young Michael running on the treadmill and I think good for him, you know? Third headline.
Headline number 3. Michael, you might have a lot to say.
I know
about
which one
this.
you're going to say.
What is
I already
it?
know it.
I'm personally not
It's about
super informed.
it's about DistroKid.
Yeah.
I knew it because
Yeah,
I'm
so-
like, first of all, I was like, I saw the thing on Instagram, and then I saw you. I was like, woo!
Yeah.
So your post about
I'll
it. I
let
was like,
people know if they haven't heard, but on July 6, 2026, private equity firm CVC Capital Partners announced a definitive agreement to acquire a majority stake in the independent music distribution platform DistroKid. Thoughts?
Have you ever seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Do you know that movie?
yeah, but I haven't seen it in so long. Can't remember.
Do you know when
the plot?
the guy's going around the room and he's shaving a haircut? He's knocking on the wall
Yep.
because all of them can't do it, and he's in the room
That's
shaking
right.
like that, and he's like, I gotta finish the
Yeah.
song. That's how I felt when I saw this. I was like, I gotta talk about this because so DistroKid got acquired by longtime music lovers, CVC Capital
Longtime music-
funding partners or whatever. This is why I started Mad Records.
Yes.
Because This will be another half. I'll be quick.
Oh,
I'm glad to hear, because I'm first of all, I'm glad to talk about this in person with you and on camera, because
Yeah.
I want to get, it's interesting to get your thoughts.
Okay. I'll be as brief as I can. So when I was a trader, I was a corporate bond trader, which is debt, which is how all of this stuff gets financed, is mostly through debt, right? And it was by trading corporate bonds that I realized that pretty much every company owns every other company in some capacity, until you get up to a couple different whales that pretty much own everything else, right? Perfect example is like Concord Music Group. Do you know who owns Concord?
No, but I bet it's a German alcohol company.
Michigan Pension Fund
Oh, wow.
owns Concord Music.
Wow.
So
Michigan Pension.
well, if you follow the trail up on any of these companies, you end up in some really weird places.
Wow.
And most of them have no real fundamental value alignment with the thing that sits at the bottom of
Yeah.
the investment, which is like DistroKid. Independent music distribution for independent artists is now owned by someone who owns, I think, a stake in Formula One and La Liga, right? Like and this is why I got into music, and this is why money is not flowing to the actual artists. That's why there's no risk taking, because the people who are sitting at the top of these decision trees, not only are they not taking risks on artists like Cole, it's like they don't even operate in the music space at all. And so you end up with these big corporate behemoths that own everything, and all of the money gets sucked into this ecosystem, and then the rest of us are fighting around for the scraps of it. And it's one of my core frustrations, and the reason that I started Mad Records was because I came out of this finance world and I saw all this consolidation. And a lot of people will tell you, and I have this debate all the time, a lot of people tell you, oh, it's always been corrupt, it's not. It's getting worse. That problem is getting worse. If you go back 20, 30, 40 years, there was more competition. That's why people had to take risks on people, because they're trying to beat their competitors. But now it's cheaper to acquire your competitor than it is to actually outcompete them. And so that's where we live in.
I'm gonna say something out loud. You tell me true or false.
Okay.
It's some axiom I came across on my scrolling or whatever, that was like, this sort of capital system is running out of things to invest in. And so they're coming after the art, not coming after like in a predatory way, but maybe coming after the arts. And case in point, I keep getting people emailing me about my catalog. Like, we want to buy your catalog out. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know who you think you're dealing with, but you ain't gonna get rich off that.
Well,
you might, whatever. But it's like,
well, everybody's... So if you think about the Michigan Pension Fund owns Concord, right?
Yeah.
What does the Michigan Pension Fund need? They need stability of income, right? Because they're paying out pensions. So you don't want risky investments. You want stability, because you've got fixed incomes that you have to pay out. So what everybody's looking for right now in private equity is fixed income, stable revenue streams. That's why all of these discographies are getting bought, while all these catalogs are getting bought, because they're predictable revenue streams. You know, if Bruce Springsteen's music nets X amount of royalties every single year, you depreciate that by a fixed percentage over the next 20, 30 years. And then you can model out, okay, cool, this is how much revenue we're getting. We'll pay a X multiple on that upfront for it. And now we can sit and let this print money and we can make our pensions. So what everybody's doing is they're trying to take the arts, which are inherently the most risky and unstable of all the industries, and force stability onto them, which is why you're seeing all the record labels and all these private equity companies buy up distribution platforms, because what they're saying is we're no longer interested in developing talent. We would rather just slap a meter on people distributing music and make money on the front end. Because think about it this way, if you've got all of these AI songs getting pumped out every single day, right? What is more attractive to you from a business model and a stability perspective? Is it easier to try and develop an artist who's going to compete with all of that is getting flooded every single day? Or is it easier to just charge $20 for every song that gets distributed to Spotify and say, you guys figure the rest of it out? So Warner Music just bought or sorry, not Warner Music, Universal Music Group just bought CD Baby, the other big distributor. And all the record labels are just going to start monetizing the distribution. And then Joe, the song gets distributed. They get all the data on which songs are actually working and which songs are not because they own the indie distribution. And then you just go and sprinkle a little bit of money on that. And you call it an artist development deal. And you say, hey, we're still a record label. We're still investing in these people.
Right.
And that's how you force stability onto an industry that is not stable.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I think, I think it's very interesting that, and I don't know how it worked. I don't know how idealistic it was back in the day. But I always remember that Frank Zappa thing where he's like, everybody thinks, he's like, you'll see it on the internet if you Google it about him and the A&R guys of back in the day. Mm-hmm. The square A&R dudes. He's like, everybody thought the cool A&R guys were the guys with ponytails coming in the 70s. And they're like, and he's like, really the best ones were the guys who were like naive in the 60s that were like straight-laced dudes that were like, signed Pink Floyd and all these other guys. We don't know what it is. Maybe the kids will like it. Mm-hmm. Let's throw it out there and see who likes it. Rather than, we know what people like, man, it needs to be this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? Like, so it got like sort of tailored into this is what, there's a big thing about this is what will sell. You know what I mean? And who's making that decision? Mm-hmm. Like who's carving the edges of that sculpture to make it palatable for what the people want? You know what I mean?
It's Michigan Financial Group. That's who's doing it.
And therein lies, and I totally see what you're saying, where it's like, hey, we expect X amount of return, like a conservative study. You know what I mean? This is something that we want to set our Rolex to. Like this is like millisecond sturdy, 8% or more for the, we don't want to take any dips. It's the retirement. It's not like speculative.
And that's why every movie is a reboot of a successful franchise, because what are you going to do? You're looking for stability. You're looking for predictability.
Started, dude.
Yeah. Everything's a reboot, right? Everything's a rehash. There's no new IP coming out because new IP is risky. And you only take risks if you have to compete with someone. I remember talking to someone at that Third and Lindsley show where they worked for some label that got acquired by another label. And they were like, yeah, the bigger label really missed out on kind of like this bluegrass resurgence. And so they bought our label to make up for that. And I was like, no, man, if you miss the trend, you're supposed to go out of business. Like you're supposed to suffer a little bit. Like that's the point. That's the thing that keeps you on your toes. That's the thing that keeps you investing in new talent and taking risks. You're not supposed to just be able to go, oops, we screwed up. Now we're going to acquire that person, because now the same people who missed the first trend are running the company that actually was on trend. And all those people are going to get laid off. And now you just have a bigger company with people that have already proven that they can't manage the trends and give people what they want. So someone's got to do something, Joe. Someone's got to do something.
Something like this happening, do you think this is just more reinforcement for the independent artists to not go with a record label, just stay independent, even, no matter what the price is?
The thing that I talk about with artists all the time is like, the era of someone swooping in and building the business around you is over. You have to do it yourself. And I view it almost as a form of activism to be an entrepreneur right now, because I talked about this yesterday. Every dollar you make as an independent artist is a dollar that gets sucked out of the corporate ecosystem. So view it as like every artist is like, well, I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to make money I don't want to sell like my stuff, blah, blah. It's like, go sell your stuff, because it's actually pulling it out of this corporate ecosystem and into the pockets. I'd be more worried about where you spend your money than about making money from your audience. I think there's no better way to make a living than by making money from your own audience. So I think it's important for artists to build their business around their music themselves. And I think it's a net good, because if you go back to your era or the era before you, all of these labels, they would swoop in and sign talent, and that sounds romantic. But I said this on the last podcast, if you watch the biopic of any of those people, they were all effed up and got screwed and got run ragged and manipulated. So it's nice that you can control your own destiny. It's just a lot of work.
Well, also, and I'm reminded of like, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, which was, there was a Sire Records signing spree in Nashville in like in the late 90s. And it totally had this tax write-off thing, the vibe about it. Like where it was like, they were just like, it was like, you.
Yeah.
They were just like handing out checks. Willy-nilly, it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't approach us. And maybe they did that out of respect. I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know
Sounds like 2008 recession.
Yeah, totally.
Just handing out loans,
Yep.
you know.
Cash was cheap.
And guess what? All those records, got made, but didn't, like most of them didn't come out. You know what I mean? And then they'd be in litigation to try to get the record back from the label or blah, blah, blah. And by the time that happens, you're just so like,
yeah.
so exhausted, and you don't feel like, you don't really have a good flavor in your body about that. You don't really have like a good positive, like, I can't wait to share this,
Well, a lot of times they're spending money just because they have to spend money. Like they have a budget.
That's
that
what I mean.
to-
They had to exhaust the budget.
Yeah. Like I see that all the time on commercials. My wife will tell you, like, if you watch TV with me, I just yell at the TV. I think that's a very Northeast thing.
It is, totally.
It's like,
look at this.
Yeah. Oh, come on. The freaking Geico Gecko again, or freaking Flo from Progressive.
Yeah.
Like those types of things. But you see these commercials where it's like, there's no thought put into the commercial. They're not even asking for anything. I don't understand how any of this drives any business for them. They just have to spend money on it because they have these massive budgets and they don't know what to do with them.
Wow.
But I could go on about that. But that's how I watch TV. But anyways, Joe, thank you very much
for having me.
coming on. This is fun, man. I was really looking forward to just sitting and talking to you for an hour. So I appreciate
Likewise.
it. Anything coming up that, like, what's going on in your world? Anything you want to promote? You want to be a real indie artist about it?
Well, I can't think of anything off the top of my head because I have things coming. There's a bunch of stuff coming out, but I don't know when it'll come out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Where can people best find your work?
Yeah.
where can people find my work?
Yeah.
Oh, well, if you just put my name into the Google machine, I think I'm going to be joepisapia.com soon. Not yet.
Whoa,
but I
really?
got it back. It got taken over by like sort of, one day I had like Asian writing on it. And I was like, oops, I forgot to pay my GoDaddy or whatever.
Did they try and charge you for it?
Yeah, it was like they wanted a lot of money for a while, and then all of a sudden it was $50. Like, I got to think, I was like, if you want it for $50? I'm like, yes, I want it for $50, and I got it. But I'm joepisapia.net. Don't go there because it's out of date. I hate.
Oh, this is terrible.
Go to
promotion.
Instagram and see some stuff. You know what I mean? Go to Instagram. You can put my name into the. I would be honored if people listen to my catalog on Spotify or whatever, title et al. Just put my name in and just clicked around on it. Just to see what I'm about.
We're gonna have to work on that elevator pitch.
Yeah, I probably have to work on that.
Yeah.
It sounds a little lazy.
Joe Pisapia.
Just go put my name into the thing and just see what you like.
JoePisapia.com.
Yeah,
soon to be.
That's right. But if you go to any of that stuff, click around and find out. Because I feel like I have records with like singing on them, and then there's some instrumental records, and it's very eclectic.
Do you want to promote that very vulnerable record that you put out?
I would rather not promote that and just let it be out there.
Okay.
Just like,
it's like the dirty laundry that you don't want people
it's like that happened, but you could see it if you want. It's a very heavy one, so it's like, I feel like, just check it out if you dare. But I have more music in the works, and I'm excited to put that out when it's ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to have you back on multiple times over
I'll talk as much as you want. I'll talk too much.
Okay, good. Anytime there's a big acquisition like this, I'm going to have you back on. We're going to talk about it.
Well, I just want to interview you about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, Michael, just tell us what that means.
I was so fired up to talk about it. I was so excited. But all right. Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
we'll see you
Thank
next time. Bye, everybody.